To all you who are proponents of the oil and gas industry, I encourage you to reconsider allowing your pro-oil arguments to simply focus around how many jobs are linked to the industry, or how many families are fed by that industry. While those arguments may help bolster and encourage those who are already connected to the industry in some way that they know of, through their job or the job of a family member, I fear that at best such arguments are met with indifference, and at worst met with glee, when they come in contact with those who are anti-oil and gas. If I may take a moment to explain. I am from California. Enough said. I have lived in Colorado for several years, which, while Coloradans hate to admit it, is pretty much like living in California, but with snow. I also do quite a bit of work all over North America in several different industries. When those who oppose the oil and gas industry hear that damaging the industry will create job loss in a particular area, they are actually glad for it. I know this might seem hard to believe, especially when much of the talk our politicians give us from both sides seems to bend over backward in an effort to appeal to how their efforts will create jobs, no matter what sector they happen to be in, as if jobs were the single most important factor for a society to consider. The fact is, the part of the continent that opposes oil and gas thinks of your job in oil and gas the same way you would think of someone who perhaps works for a big tobacco company, or perhaps a large pornography studio, or an abortion doctor. Pick whatever industry you'd like that you believe is knowingly aiding the slow slide of humanity into the abyss, and then realize that the feelings you have for those who willingly show up to work every day in those jobs are exactly how those who oppose oil and gas feel about your job, or your mom's job, or your son's job in that industry. Worse, actually, they hope you lose your job. They hope you have trouble finding another one. They hope your region falls on economic hard times for even allowing your job to exist. They, worse than don't care about your or anyone else's job in that sector. They actually hope that your kids go to bed hungry after they've regulated you out of that job. That's how they see your complaint about job loss because of regulation in that sector. They see you as some blue-collar hack who should have taken advantage of his privilege to get an education and do something better with his life than become some mindless rig pig who does nothing but work with his back, down PBR, and watch the Broncos. If not that, then they see you as a white-collar con man who is trading his soul and safety of future generations for a quick money grab. Either way, they see you as either too dumb or too evil to deserve a lucrative job in the first place. Now, some of them feel this way out of true malice and hatred for their fellow human being. Believe that. However, many feel this way out of a sort of not quite benign ignorance of either the economy, geology, or electronics, or politics, or some other cocktail of how they got their views. I, for one, have grown to realize these truths about oil and gas. That without it, the Western world as we know it simply doesn't exist. There would be far more poverty globally, and especially in third world countries right now. We wouldn't have enough food to sustain the amount of people that the globe has right now. Far more people would die every year from exposure and starvation, again, especially in third world countries. We would actually be dealing with a lot more pollution, and the list goes on. I also know that we haven't discovered another technology yet that is capable of tackling these problems, or that we're willing to utilize. And therefore, to simply eradicate or regulate an industry out of existence that helps so many people worldwide without a solution to fill that vacuum would be a literal bloodbath. So, for those who hate oil and gas, I think they would have to reconcile with the rather racist implications of such a stance, and I'd be very interested to hear why they take such a stance in the face of all the good it's done humanity as a whole, not just some blue-collar nobody in some region of the country that we think needs to get with the times and get an education. I also understand that, like all other industries in existence, there are real areas of concern that need to continually be improved upon and addressed. However, what I don't understand is how an industry that does so much good relative to the potential harm it does can be scrutinized in a way that many other industries that appear to do far less good relative to the harm they demonstrably do to society seem to be left alone. That would make an interesting study as to why that is. My point here is not to malign the people who hate oil and gas, and it's not to chastise those who would support it. My point is this: if you think you are going to persuade an individual who is already committed to hating such an industry and those who participate in it by citing how many jobs and families it supports, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. You're making an assumption about their values that is gravely mistaken. Much in the same way that someone who would make the assumption that you are knowingly destroying the planet simply to get rich would be gravely mistaken. Appealing to loss of jobs will find your argument dismissed before it even has a chance to sink into their brain. I hope this makes sense.